Good morning, everyone. I'm Kate Burnett, General Manager at DMA Talent here at the Data and Marketing Association. Welcome to our webinar that's to discuss and launch the DMA Student Marketing Challenge that's going to run from now until June next year. The Marketing Challenge has been running now since 1997, where we produced our first brief with Volkswagen. It's a national competition that we run every year. The students tend to work in teams of between 2 and 6 people to answer a real marketing brief that's been set by a client and an agency. As a group, you can work in a group of 2 to 6 people to tackle the challenge. And it was originally founded by Derek Holder, who founded the IDM, which was then the Institute of Direct Marketing. And he did this because he wanted to provide a real-life marketing situation for students to work on whilst they were doing their degrees. So it's evolved as time's gone on, obviously to keep up with the ever-evolving sort of digital and technological changes that happen on our industry. But the point is still the same, so that even if you haven't got any work experience as a student, you've got a campaign that you've worked on and a campaign that you can talk about to a potential employer. And it also enables you to get a feel for what it's actually like to work in a marketing team or as part of an agency and respond to an actual real life situation. Lots of our universities that we work with use this as an assignment as part of their course. But that's, you don't have to be doing that. You can just join this, and you can actually even do the brief if you're not studying marketing, just to give it a go and see how it feels. So this year, really pleased to be working with both RAP and KFC. RAP are members of the DMA, and I think it's probably fair to say one of our most engaged members in terms of working with talent and sort of future generation of marketers. They support lots of initiatives that we do. And have given lots of marketers their first starts and their first job. So welcome to Rafaela, who is here representing RAP, based in London. She's a senior data strategist. And we've got their client KFC as the brief, as I said. So a brand that I think we can have quite a lot of fun with, a brand that I think everybody will know, because we've worked with large companies and small companies. So this is a pretty big one. And I think probably fair to say a brand that doesn't take itself too seriously, Rafaela. There's some really good, fun campaigns out there from KFC. So I'll hand over to Rafaela for a few minutes just to talk through. It'd be really good to know why we've got to this point with KFC, what it is that, asked them to ask you to look at this as a brief.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, I'm Rafaela. I work for RAP. I've been working on the KFC account for about 2.5 years now, which is about as long as we've sort of been working with them. So I've been, I'm very deep in the weeds when it comes to KFC. I've been kind of gone on this journey with them. And delivery is definitely kind of the biggest focus, or one of the biggest focus for, I'd say, all of the QSR brands at the moment. It's a really crucial part of the overall offering of all of these brands, because obviously it means that you can reach customers at a place that you wouldn't be able to reach them with takeaway alone. So you kind of add a whole new occasion or a whole new moment to your roster. You also collect valuable data in terms of when customers are more likely to order, and on a whole, in general, deliver tends to be at these slightly more sort of higher transaction value moments, so dinner or sharing with friends or coming together to watch the football, for example. So they're really valuable moments across the whole QSR sector. So you would have seen a lot of delivery options pop up across various different of our competitors as well. So we're not the only ones doing this, which is why it's so important to have this exact challenge that we put to you all, because it's something that we are working on as well. And it is really about how do you communicate this to our customers? How do you ensure people are considering KFC delivery and kind of increase that frequency of ordering throughout the whole kind of life cycle, I guess, of our consumers? So yeah, I'm really excited to see what everyone's going to come up with, because, as I said, it's something that we are working on too. It's something that the client's been working on for almost a year now. So the delivery offering within the app launched last December, around about the World Cup. You may have seen the kind of ads that were spanning throughout that time. partnership as well. So it's quite a big focus and quite exciting to see where you can all take it.
So there's actually a couple of the ads within the brief, isn't there? You actually embedded a couple of ads in the brief. So and I think that starts to give a real sort of flavour as to the nature of the, the need. You've set the different like needs out in the brief, and gets the message across really nicely.
Yeah.
There is a bit of a dual challenge though, isn't there, with obviously they want to continue delivery through Uber Eats and Deliveroo as well.
Yeah, so I think that's actually a really interesting point. Like this is not meant to steal share from any of our aggregator partners or compete with them in any way. It is sort of an additional element to the offering, KFC. And I think identifying when a customer might want to go to an Uber Eats or Just Eat or Deliveroo and when they might want to go within the app, I think it's a really interesting customer insight. So I would definitely recommend kind of digging into that and what makes people choose different apps and what makes people have different apps on their phone and engage with them and not delete them and all of that. So again, an interesting thing to look into and understand the nuance there.
Yeah. And is there are there any areas where you've worked with KFC and realised that there's some absolute no-nos for KFC in terms of whether it's messaging or channels or things they just don't say? Is there anything that you've come across so far where that's happened?
I think it's a really interesting question. So I would say the biggest one in general is KFC doesn't like to be a negative brand. I think it's a positive brand. So we don't really like to kind of kick down or, you know, our messaging is not about we are better than X. It's just we are good. Like you
Yeah.
know what you're getting with KFC. You like it. Everyone does. It's unique in its offering and it's got flavors that you can't get anywhere else. So we don't really need to be mean to others. So I think that's a really important element here. And again, it kind of goes into we're not trying to steal share from Just Eat or Deliveroo. It's we work inside by side with them. So I think that's a really important element. Yeah, don't be mean, be nice, be funny, be clever, and kind of have fun with it.
Yeah, because they have had a bit of fun and play on the sort of KFC initials in the past, haven't they?
Loads.
That's been quite good fun. Have you got any favourites in terms of campaigns that either you've done or they've done previously?
Actually one that's currently out. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but the new fries have launched and they're actually very tasty, which is big news in the KFC world. Tasty fries and Mother have done some brilliant out of home and stuff above the line ads that again play on the kind of asterisks in specific places. So yeah, would highly recommend just looking at those as well. It's just fun, and I think it's understanding. It's that kind of that ad specifically. I think is very clever in the way that KFC is acknowledging that maybe the fries weren't the best offering previously, and it's something that the brand itself has put a lot of effort, money, resource into to actually create really delicious fries. And now being quite honest and upfront about that, we know they weren't great before, but now we've done something. And that
Yeah.
I think is the whole, not taking ourselves too seriously, understanding our consumers, understanding the pain points, and then leaning into it with a bit of humor.
And are there any particular areas or channels where KFC gets a lot of more engagement than other channels or other areas from customers?
So not really, and I think that's an interesting part of the brief that KFC kind of operate across all of the different media channels and CRM channels that you might imagine. And it really depends on the kind of campaign, what channels work harder or better. So I think that's something that we'd really like to see come out in the briefs in terms of what is your channel mix? Why have you chosen that? Why have you chosen to spend your money in certain places? If you do choose a more expensive channel, why that channel, and kind of what benefit are you going to get from it, or versus if say you avoid TV altogether, again, explain why that is. And I think, yeah, we've had success across the board, depending on the campaign and the audience selected.
I noticed, so one of the things obviously we always look for when we're looking at the campaigns that come through from the students is making sure that they've really understood that target audience. And I just wonder whether you could talk us through the sort of need states, because this is, I think, different from other briefs that we've done in terms of how you start to zone down on those target segments and how it works around those convenience, comfort, and celebrate need states.
Yeah, KFC is definitely an interesting brand in that sense, and also one that when I first joined the account, I think was sort of a big learning curve for me personally, is that there isn't a clearly defined this is the target audience that you might have for some other clients or some other brands where you know exactly, okay, this is the persona or this is the set of personas or whatever it might be. KFC is a pretty universal product in that way. Like lots and lots of people uh, eat KFC, go to KFC with some level of frequency and kind of engage with the brand. And as you said earlier, like most people know the brand. So there isn't kind of that, you wouldn't know of it in some span of life. So it's really about honing in on those different moments where KFC might be relevant. And that then helps you identify a target audience. So for example, convenience is a really big one for lunchtime visits or kind of quick after work. You just like you're running to your next thing or your evening engagement, you're just grabbing a wrap or a mini bucket, or you've got your children at home over half term. You don't know what to do, and you need to have something to kind of feed them with whilst you're out and about. That's where convenience comes in. So you can kind of start identifying what those target audience might be. And then the same with Celebrate, that kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier in terms of watching the football together as a big group or kind of having a big birthday sharing occasion. Again, different target audience come out of it. So I think really looking at what are those moments. Those three we've given are the ones that we've identified, but there might be loads more. You might be able to be much more specific with them. So again, looking into the customer research there, mapping those out, and then from there saying, okay, these are the target audience for the specific campaign. And you don't need to hit all three of them always. Like it is about being kind of nuanced with it and being quite targeted in that sense, but not forgetting that obviously KFC speaks to everyone most of the time.
Mm-hmm. So there's space in the brief for the students to actually create another need state or something that they picked up on from their research. Yeah,
definitely. And I think that's the thing we're most excited about. We really want to see your research and your thinking and your kind of understanding of the audience and of KFC as a brand and how those two link together. I think that's definitely what we're most excited about.
And I guess because it is such a universal brand in a way, and it is, from a distribution point of view, it's everywhere. There's every opportunity for the students to get out there and do a bit of their own research. And
100%. Have some KFC, talk to people, understand when is it busy, when is it not busy, different patterns. Yeah, definitely, please.
Yeah, and get on there and have a look at the app and play with the app so you can understand, just how it can be used. But also, obviously, in the background, we'll want to understand what your thinking around data strategy is. So what data can you pick up from the app? What do you think KFC already have? What else do you think might be useful, but you need to tell us why it's useful? You can't just collect for the sake of it. And how you're going to use that data within the brief. What insights have you gained? And how can you use that to sort of develop your campaign better? And I guess from a research point of view, I know when you're doing your assignments, you'll probably do a SWOT analysis, you'll probably do a PESTLE analysis. We don't need to see that in your pitch, obviously, but what we do want to see is what insight that gave you that led you to make the decisions that you made within the pitch, within the brief that you've put together. So I think that's some key points that we need to make sure we understand. And from that point of view, we've talked a bit, Raphael has talked a little about the marketing channels there. You've identified your audience. How are you going to talk to them? Which channels are you going to use? And we really like to know why as well. We'd like to know the reason for your decision for choosing those channels, and we'll be looking very much at how that fits back with what you've proposed to do. Do you have any advice for the students on pitching? Because if you get through the first round of judging, which we'll do at the DMA, we'll have a small group of students that come and actually pitch to Rafaela and KFC. And from your experience of pitching, is there anything you'd like to offer them?
Yeah, I think that the biggest or the most important piece of advice is just it is about storytelling when it comes to the pitch. I think doing all of your research and all of your strategic thinking is the sort of, the foundation of any kind of marketing plan. But then when it comes to the pitch, you need to be able to tell that story well and engagingly and clearly. And I think making sure that you don't get lost in the detail when it comes to that stage, but ensuring that if you haven't done any of the research that you've done or haven't done any of the thinking that you've done, you still understand exactly why and where you landed, I think is really important. So sometimes, I mean, as a data strategist, that often means that, you do heaps and heaps and heaps of research. You've got decks coming out of everywhere and you condense it down to one slide because that is the most important bit that the client really needs to take away. And they need to understand that that is the work you've done, right? Like they ultimately, you're getting paid to do the research and then condense it down into something that's really tangible, really actionable, makes sense. And I think that is the job, showing the research, showing that you've done it, but then giving something really sort of precise over. And I think, yeah, definitely lean into some storytelling techniques there. And you can find inspiration everywhere, like films, books, whatnot, that can kind of come from completely different sources.
I think we'll probably put a couple of non-related campaigns from the DMA awards on the website just to give so they can see, example of a pitch, that somebody's put together and a campaign that someone's put together, to give a bit of background on an unrelated brief, I think. Are there any questions for people that are here today? I've got a couple more that we've got sort of hidden away from previous activity, but does anyone have a question? You can either put it in the chat or you can ask your question. I know we've got a few tutors on the call as well. Okay, I don't think we've got any. Oh, here we go. Of all the of the KFC question campaigns, Giles, which was the most successful campaign in recent years?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's really difficult to say because they all had different KPIs and different success measures in that sense. So I'd say in general, any of the ones that you remember, they were successful. They performed. I can't actually think of one that we've had recently that hasn't performed really well in what it was trying to drive. I think we've gotten, like KFC have gotten really, really good at being really precise at what they try to get out of a campaign. I think lots of brands had to, and they've always been quite clever about that. So I can't think of any that haven't performed well at the moment, but I definitely think some of the bigger ones that you would have noticed, so the World Cup one, that's just really big, really well performing. Got lots of people talking about it. As I said, the Fries relaunch, I think that had quite a big buzz, and I think really landed in terms of the message it was trying to drive and in terms of what it's trying to do. So yeah, those are sort of the ones that come to mind most immediately.
Giles has just put in the chat there something that I remembered actually as we started to talk was the sort of tongue-in-cheek attitude when they ran out of chicken.
Again, it's a really interesting one because like obviously the KPIs for that were more around brand awareness and not so much about kind of conversion. So that's what I mean. Like that was great for brand awareness, but like we actually very specifically like there's an awareness piece in the brief for sure, like making sure people are aware of KFC delivery, but ultimately it's trying to drive conversion. Like that's I think maybe an important element just to keep in mind as well. Like the brief is looking at that mid to lower funnel stage rather than just top funnel.
Yeah. Fab, thanks, Giles. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Can't see any. Does anyone have any questions about the submission in terms of what we're looking for? It'd be useful if I just run through that as well. So the closing date for the competition this year is, Lisa, the 3rd of June. sorry, it should be engraved on my memory. The closing date is midnight on the 3rd of June when we'd like all the entries in. The entries can be uploaded onto the DMA website. As I said at the beginning, the final stage of this, for those that actually get through, is to come and pitch your entry. So what we want to see you upload is what that pitch is going to look like. So, very often people do that on a number of slides, but basically you'll have 15 minutes to pitch your ideas. So it needs to be very concise, but we need to be able to see, I guess, that you've done that background work, you've done your research, you've thought through your data strategy, you've thought through the channels that you're going to use. And also we want to know that it's going to meet the KPIs of the brief. You've got some quite clear KPIs for the brief there. So we need to make sure we can see that those are going to be hit. So it needs to be a sort of nod to measurement, how you're going to measure the success of your campaign. Is there any testing that you want to do in order to make sure you're making the right recommendations going forward? So you've got all of those areas. We've got quite a nice big healthy budget for this brief, which is good, which allows you to tackle a wide range of different channels. But A, we'd like to see how you spend that budget, and B, we'd like to see some sort of ROI calculation. What do you believe we're going to be giving back to KFC after having spent the budget? So, and I also think, there's some good tips on the DMA website about awards entries, which are probably quite useful to read. That one of the things that stands out is, what's the wow factor? And this very often comes from the articulation of your creative idea. But that's not enough on its own, because we need to know that we need to have a good sense, the client needs to have a good sense that that brief and that campaign you're doing is actually going to work, which is why things like the measurement are really important. So how do we know it's going to track back and hit those KPIs? And, the other area that we talked about at the beginning, is that target audience. Are you getting there? Are you meeting the needs of that target audience that you've selected using those different sort of stages and needs? And lastly, I think you can talk about the big idea, but it's great to see a bit of context as to how that campaign is going to run. So if there's different stages to that campaign, what are those different stages going to be? What do the timings look like? I think, Raffaella, you've asked for them to choose a quarter, haven't you, to run the campaign?
Yeah.
Over a quarter. So there's a 3-month period there where we'd like to see how the activity lays out. It doesn't need to be in masses of detail, but how do all those different channels work together across that 3-month period that will lead you to the results at the end?
And I think on that, like the quarter is up to you, and you might choose it at random, and that's fine. But if you have a reason to choose a specific quarter, do let us know, because there will be obviously that awareness of other things going on during certain quarters is always helpful.
So it's important to have the context around it as well. Great. Any last snippets from you, Raffaella, before we wrap up?
I'm trying to think. I think it is just have a bit of fun with it. Show us your strategic thinking, and like this is definitely a challenge that applies not just to KFC but to I think all of the brands we work with. It's about that growth and kind of understanding, doing it in a considered way and in a long-term approach. So I think that's definitely something to think about. I think one of the questions that was shared ahead of time was whether it's more important to retain customers or to get new customers, and really we'd like to hear your answer on that. We'd like to understand what do you think is the best in the long term. So showing that thinking.
Brilliant, thanks very much. Any last questions from who we've got on the call today?
Yeah, I do have a question. Sorry, I unmuted myself earlier, so you heard some typing. Sorry for that. 2 questions. One briefly, once the presentations are done on the 3rd, the submissions are done on the 3rd.
Yeah.
What is the plan for the further timing? Because it coincides somewhat with exam periods and so on, so it would need some careful planning if we have teams submitting.
Yeah, okay. Normally we take a couple of weeks to look through the entries just to get it down to what we believe are the right entries to put forward to Raffaella and her team and the clients. And then Lisa, have we got a date set for the pitch yet?
I do have a provisional one, which is Wednesday, the 3rd of July, because we do have a problem where we try to get students before they graduate and leave. Some teams might have some international students, so we're trying to be conscious of trying to get as many of the team there to pitch as possible. But if there are any no dates, then please let me know and we can discuss that.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Okay.
And we'll do the pitch probably. We'll have a venue in central London. We can either do it at the DMA offices or maybe at RAP's offices, but we'll confirm that nearer the time. But it will be central London, so it'll be easy to get to for everyone.
What are your tips for winning the competition?
My tips or Rafaela's tips?
Let's go for both of you.
What would you most like to see?
I think I've already said it. I think it's like the thinking. I don't ever think there's a sort of bad creative idea if you have the kind of like the strategic thinking behind it and you show exactly where it's come from. When you do lose people is when you kind of just throw something out that might be brilliant when you've had all of your different thoughts connect, but you can't explain exactly where you land there. So I think that's probably for me the most important thing, and also I think what we've seen works well in pitches.
Right, yeah, and I think for me, having done this for a few years now, I guess we always tend to look at how the campaign falls together. And for me, it's really about understanding the audience and whether what you've done, A, works for the audience, but also B, really importantly, works with the KFC brand and demonstrating, what you've understood of the KFC brand in terms of how this is going to work, and having said that, you can have a really well, academically executed piece given to you in terms of everything works and flows, but it doesn't make you sit up in your seat or feel something or go wow. And I think that's the entries that are really successful, are the people that manage to campaign, getting that process right of how a campaign should run, and checking it and measuring it and showing us that it's actually going to work for the brands and for the objectives. But it's got a little bit of magic dust on it as well. It's got an idea. And again, people do produce creative assets to go with it, and that's great. We love to see that. But equally important is that you can articulate that, you can articulate clearly, as Rafaela said, what the purpose of this is and how does your idea work. So for me, it's a combination of those things, getting all the steps right, but making us go, oh yeah, I can see that will work. That's a bit different. It's a good idea. So I think they're my tips, really. I'd just like to say thank you to RAP for working with us on this brief and the many other things that you do to support talent coming into the industry. We really do appreciate that. As I said, it closes on 3rd of June, so you've got plenty of time to get your entries in. We've got an address there for any questions. Have a good day, have some fun with it, and we look forward to getting your entries.
Very excited. Have a lovely day.